Everyone, how are y'all doing today? Good to see you. If you want to come off your video, you're more than welcome. We've got a small group today. Well, actually, people are continuing to join us. This is, I think, our 8th listening session. So welcome. I'm Heidi Pickman from Cameo. It's, like I said, it's great to see everyone. I'm going to share my screen just for a little bit, and I'll probably go on and off. So let's see. Oh, let's not do that. Let's do. Great, and everybody should be looking at the slideshow. State and federal policy update and listening session. We don't have a ton of people on, so I'm gonna call on you, and well, actually more and more people keep joining. If you want to just say your name and your organization, that would be amazing, and I will start. You heard that I'm Heidi Pickman from Cameo, and I'm joined by Melissa, if she wants to give a little wave, who's our Southern California Program Manager. Mark, you want to say hello?
Howdy.
Mark Quinn, who's our Senior Advisor. Elizabeth Sullivan from DC.
Hi, everyone. Yes, part of Cameo's federal advocacy team in DC.
Ron, you want to say hello?
Hi, Ron Fong with the Asian Pacific Islander Small Business Program.
Thanks, down in LA. And call-in user 1, I'm not sure who you are. Call-in user 1. Somebody else on the phone that's not Elizabeth. Okay. Barbara Morrison.
Barbara Morrison, TMC Financing, Bay Area.
Hi, Barbara. Bill?
The Small Business Development Center in San Francisco.
Excellent. And Elizabeth, let's see, EJ.
EJ Steel Susquehanna Consulting.
Jim. I'll unmute you. Jim? Jim Baird from Bay Area Development Company. I'll introduce you myself. Joanna? Joanna Williams. I think you're from 3 Corps, if I'm not mistaken. George? George? And
yes, George from OSED.
Where are you from, George?
OSED, Office of Community and Economic Development, Fresno.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Mark H.
Hey, everybody. Mark with Small Business Majority.
Mark M.
Mark Morales, City National Bank, SBA Department.
Mark. Nina.
This is Nina with the Women's Business Center at Jedi.
Thanks, Nina. Sorry about that. Noah? Noah, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is Noah Broad out of the San Francisco District Office of the U.S. Small Business Administration.
Great. And Peggy?
Hi, everyone. Peggy Hazlett, President and CEO of the Greater Ontario Business Council.
Fantastic. And Susan?
Susan Lamping with CDC Small Business Finance.
Susan's our big fan this week. Susan and Ron. Great, thanks. I like to have everybody introduce themselves because this is a listening session and we want to make sure, we want to encourage you to talk and ask questions. I think everybody's found the unmute button, so I'm gonna just kind of skip over these directions. I think by listening session 8, we're all Zoom professionals by now. We're recording. If you're free to share, we'll send you a link as soon as you can if you have other staff members you want to share this with, and we're happy to share the few slides that we have. Today, we already did our introduction. We're gonna talk about what's new for federal policy. We have Elizabeth Sullivan from Madison Services Group, who is one of our DC maven. Her and her partner, Ann Sullivan, are fantastic and have been doing lots of advocacy in DC for us and keeping us well informed. We've got Mark Quinn for some perspective. I'm guessing Noah's going to add some perspective, and so will Mark Herbert, and Mark's going to concentrate on state policy. And we'll open up the call. So let's just want to let everybody know a few things about what's going on in Cameo. We are doing a weekly update, super quick. It's a half hour. It's kind of more out than in, and I'm making this space available because we like to converse more with everyone. That's with Small Business Majority at 10 a.m. on Fridays, and the audience is usually bigger and it does include small business owners, so we don't have a lot of room for dialogue. We also on Monday are doing a training on how to write off loans with our friends at Community Vision, and that's at 1 o'clock. I think that's at 1:30. That's a mistake. It's at 1:30 if I believe. And I'll post the link to that into chat. If Melissa wants to kind of pull that up, she can. And then on our advocacy day is going to be on June 9th. It's going to be virtual. We are going to do meetings with the legislator, and we're trying to work out all the details. So if you are planning on going, we'd love for you to join us and sign up soon so we can pre-arrange all those meetings. And there's a couple of links for resource pages, and we'll make sure that you guys get those and pop them into chat. So let's turn it over to Elizabeth to start talking about federal policy. And the big news is that there was a HEROES Act that came out that possibly was voted on already.
Yes, so thanks, Heidi. There is a congressional staffer whose job it is to figure out all the acronyms for these bills. So this one happens to be the HEROES Act, HR 6800. So this is the House plan that is the Democrats' plan that they're still voting on today. And the reason it's taking so long is they're voting in waves. They have a whole system to make sure everyone is distancing, but that is expected to pass the House sometime this evening. So it's a $3 trillion bill. It has funding like $500 billion for state governments. It's a laundry list of like $20 billion for each territorial government. It has different vote by mail funding for the post office. The list goes on to the tune of $3 trillion. And the reason that the Democrats are voting on it today, or the House is voting on it today, is the goal is really to put the pressure on the Senate once they kick it over. So Speaker Nancy Pelosi of the House has already said, we know this isn't going to pass as written in the Senate, but hopefully this can start the conversation for some bipartisan talks. And initially, the top Republican in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, had said, we're really doing a wait and see approach. We've already passed 4 bills worth trillions of dollars. And other Republicans had echoed this as well. However, because of the pressure from the bill being voted on today in the House by the Democrats, he and other Republican lawmakers have now said, well, it's kind of unclear when it'll happen, but there'll probably be another bill. A good place, actually, if you want to see kind of what might be the negotiating points, is to look at the social media of the 4 Republican senators that are up for re-election in 2020. And they have been kind of putting out some priorities, things they might agree on. State and local government funding seems to be a big one. But those are Martha McSally, she's from Arizona, Corey Gardner from Colorado, Susan Collins from Maine, and Tom Tillis from North Carolina. So just something to, you don't have to listen to the pundits, you can actually keep track of kind of what the negotiating points are. And before I talk about the small business provisions, I saw Carolina's on. She actually had direct input on this bill, the HEROES Act, on your behalf. She met with, we talked with the staffer who wrote the small business provisions in the bill. So Carolina, do you want to talk about, some of the things that you said in your meeting? And you'll see after she talks, when I kind of tick through the items, that a lot of those were incorporated into the bill.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, well, I think a lot of things have been included. Is some of the challenges we've been hearing from our members. Definitely, it was shared with Matt about one of the concerns was about the term. He was hearing a lot about being able to for the business owners to be so concerned about maybe not receiving the forgivable guidelines and being having to pay the loan within 2 years has become a concern. So that was something that we talked, but we also talk a lot about the liquidity challenges, not having a clear idea of what the forgivable rules and guidelines are. And that is becoming a big concern for small businesses. That was important to share with him. And obviously about how at least 75% of the loan of the PPP would be actually included. It had to be for payroll, but it didn't. But there is a lot of confusion in that. So that clarity was important. The other aspect that was really interesting, and we had a conversation, was about how 8 weeks is definitely not enough. And we are seeing that the small businesses really need a longer period of time. We talk about maybe 16 weeks, and I know it came up a little higher than that, 24. So that is really nice to see that coming in the bill. So I think, and I think I'm covering that, everything that we talked about, but it was a really interesting conversation. Obviously, their goal was about how we can really reach to the very small businesses and how these, which was this initial idea of the bill, and how we can really make sure that they are receiving these funds.
Thanks, Carolina. Well, with that, then I know you all also talked about things like set aside for small lenders. So I'm just gonna, it's a pretty lengthy list, and I'm sure Heidi, I know she sent out a couple times, but can probably put it in the chat, the summary from the Small Business Committee on the provisions. Thank you. But I'm just going to tick through a couple of them. One is establishing a set aside funds, and this is changes to the Paycheck Protection Program. These are all fall under that. So one is establishing a set aside of funds specifically for CDFIs, minority development institutions, SBA microlenders, and SBA certified development companies. Creating a carve out of 25% of the funds to be used specifically for small businesses with 10 or fewer employees. Creating a carve out of 25% of the funds solely for the use of all nonprofits, which is regardless of size, but it also requires at least half of this set aside for nonprofits go to small nonprofits under the 500 employee threshold. Mandates that any return amounts due to the cancellation of a covered PPP loan shall be redistributed through loans to small businesses with 10 or fewer employees. So again, I know the House Committee, and something Carolina had mentioned, was really hitting at the heart of those micro entrepreneurs. It eliminates that 75% rule, 25% for payroll costs. It's 75%, 25% for other uses. It eliminates that completely. Congress has said over and over, both sides of the aisle actually, that that was not the intent of Congress when they wrote the CARES Act. It ensures the principal and interest loan assistance is not treated as taxable income to small business borrowers. It establishes technical assistance grants for small community financial institutions and small lenders with assets of less than $10 billion. It adds flexibility in that covered period for forgiveness Carolina talked about. It extends the original 8 weeks to 24 weeks. and extends the covered period from June 30th to December 31st. It establishes a minimum maturity of PPP loans for 5 years, creates a safe harbor for borrowers who cannot rehire in the prescribed time frame. It also clarifies the hold harmless provision for lenders. It mandates forgiveness data collection and reporting. And lastly, it boosts the SBA microloan program with an additional $72 million in loans, increasing how much each lender can loan from $6 million to $10 million. And then it also gives borrowers an extra 2 years to repay. Sans that list, and there's more from changes to triple P or P3 for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, it adds $10 billion more dollars. So I know that the summary is in the chat, but basically, you know, the committee took the view of what are all the things that we can do based on all the feedback we've gotten to help, especially kind of those employers who have under 10, more of those micro businesses. So with that, Heidi, I will stop and pass it back over to you.
Sure, thanks. Does anybody have any questions for Elizabeth? I know, and we can, you know, there's other people I'm sure can chime in on this. I know, Mark, we can talk a little bit about the EIDL and PPP and what's happened so far and why some of these changes are needed. But Mark Quinn or Mark Herbert, do you guys have anything to add, or anybody have a question? This is, like I said, this is one of the reasons we ask you to introduce yourself verbally, is to encourage you to talk to.
Yeah, Elizabeth, can I ask you, so this is Mark Herbert, Small Business Majority. Just quick question about the likelihood, so sort of some of the politics of it, right? I mean, there is hope that there will be another bill because the House is putting pressure on the Senate. Mm-hmm. Do you think this is it until the election, or do you think there's going to be some additional sort of longer term relief bill? I asked that because there are some priorities that didn't make it into the House bill, like the Small Business Credit Initiative, because that's a longer term fix or solution for small business. I'm not getting the sense there's going to be another bill. You're closer to this than anyone. What's your sense? I mean, obviously nothing's in stone, but.
So you're right on that. There will be another bill probably in the next couple weeks resulting from this, but this is still seen as the relief portion. I actually wouldn't be surprised if there's another bill with the recovery portion, because they still haven't gotten to that. And that's actually what the original CARES 2 legislation that was coined, that was going to be the fourth bill, that was supposed to be another kind of behemoth, was supposed to be then shifting to recovery mode. So they're still in relief mode. So I actually think there might be another bill after this one. That would be my best guess. And I did forget to add one thing. While this was all, and I said it was, you know, House Democrats bill and listed all those changes to the Paycheck Protection Program, on the Senate side, there was a proposal by Ranking Member Ben Cardin from Maryland, also Democrat, and Cory Booker from New Jersey. And they did include in their proposal a lot of the things that I mentioned in the House bill. But I know that the Republicans also, it's been in the Senate, they're not completely ignoring small business concerns. The one issue around forgiveness and the IRS guidance that was really problematic that came out was a bipartisan solution, a bill that went through. So I would expect something like that, or maybe fixing the, 75-25, maybe extending the covered period for PPP. That's something Senator Rubio, who's the chair of the Small Business Committee in the Senate, has also echoed and said that is a problem. So in this next bill, I would expect that not maybe everything in the House bill for small businesses gets in, there should be a pretty substantial amount of kind of echoing themes.
Yeah, has there been any talk about what's happening with the big companies who are going to miss their May 18th deadline for giving back the money?
Well, I know that SBA said sorry, or Treasury SBA said sorry, we're not changing this. You need to do this and give it back now. There has been on both sides kind of the call for transparency, and in this bill there's accountability. I think they have two separate things. I need to look at the whole list, but there are two different things where you need to report, mandating reporting on, you know, the size and who got loans the size. But so far in the Senate, there's nothing concrete. No.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little disappointing in the other thing that the money that did pass, that the amendment to disclose for disclosure on who got the loans was not included. So, yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, Heidi, if I could ask Elizabeth a quick question on the what you see coming down on economic injury disaster lending numbers. You know, we've done a gigantic number of PPP deals, but the number of EI and also a significant number of the advances. But there's just such a small number of the EIDL deals that have been approved relative to all of the others. Any sense of whether that's going to be called on as an issue, because that seems to be just clogged in the process?
Well, I think that, well, I know that Senator Cardin from Maryland, his baby was getting that $10,000 advance into the bill and really increasing, oh, thank you for putting up the numbers, the money to EIDL. The issue is now SBA has taken the stance that only agricultural businesses can now apply for the EIDL, and on the advances, you can only get $1,000 per employee. And both sides of the aisle have said, well, that wasn't our intent either. Like this, you know, SBA, we understand that you're saying there are other disasters that you need this for, but it's not jiving with the intent of Congress. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of shift to clarify congressional intent, or say, you know, we need more money, not for just the agricultural producers that you're saying need this now, for other businesses, or maybe eliminating that $1,000 per employee. I wouldn't be surprised, particularly because it's Senator Cardin's kind of baby from the CARES Act.
Yeah, and I've seen numbers actually from SBA in a contracting document that quoted 4 million plus applications that were submitted through EIDL, separate from the advance, just the EIDL loans, before they shut the window for EIDL except for ag. So the backlog is just unbelievable. They have less than 100,000 loans approved, and they have probably in the excess of 4.5 million applications submitted. So I at the rate they're going, you know, we're all going to be a lot older before they get through that backlog.
That's extremely fair. I know one of the people at SBA on Monday, she had said that everyone who got or submitted an application should have gotten an email either acknowledging that they did, and that if you didn't, that's a problem and you should pay attention to that. But that's actually a really good point to bring up to them and kind of say, you know, how do you expect to get through this backlog?
Yeah, to date, I think I've seen some numbers that say somewhere in the range of 15,000 loans for California, of the less than about 78,000 total. So they are starting to approve some. That's a significant number, jump about twice the number from the late April numbers, but they're going to have to go a lot faster than this. Is there any sense from you about somebody else handling these deals other than just SBA disaster? In other words, is there contracting out of this work?
I'm not sure. I would need to get back to you on that. Let me check.
Yeah, because I'm curious to see how the volume of that scale could be handled, even with an increase in SBA staffing on the disaster side.
Yeah, because SBA you make a valid point, because SBA did get additional appropriations. I think it was $2 billion in the last round of funding to function. And so, yep, let me check on that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, there was additional assistance from the Office of Disaster Assistance in terms of contracting out to help manage the volume of applications, and you know, but at least from my conversation with the Office of Disaster Assistance, you know, they weren't sharing details about the firm that they were contracting with or the details of those contracts.
Yeah. And maybe another quick question to Elizabeth. You know, the weekly surprise from SBA, it was not the 10,000, it's only 1,000. Then the EIDL window got closed. Then the EIDL window got closed, but only for farms. This week's surprise was the EIDL maximum at 150 versus the $2 million that SBA continues to put out there as the maximum. Any sense of, and I'm not even sure if that's an official one, I've heard it through many sources. Any sense that that's what they're actually going to be planning to do?
Are you talking about for the 150 if they're going to implement that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, for the economic injury, capping it at 150,000, which we've seen in the media covered a number of places.
Let me confirm that for you. But usually if it's put out and it's pretty widely spread, they put it or will update a document or their website, actually. But let me ask SBA.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't, you know.
Or Noah is SBA.
I am
Noah,
SBA. I can speak
Go
for,
ahead.
I mean, there is no official policy of a cap of $150,000 being in place. So the Office of Disaster Assistance has not, you know, made any official policy that they've released to the public on that.
This is Mark. I actually applied for an EIDL for my business March 30th, and they capped it at 150, and we just got approved yesterday. My dentist and my dog walker, who both applied about a week prior, got larger amounts, one under the 500 cap and then one above 150. But everyone that I've talked to after has said that they've just capped it at 150.
Mm-hmm. The anecdotal word on the street.
Yeah. Congratulations
Well, let me
to your
see if I can't get some clarity.
Congratulations to the dog walker there.
Yeah. Or the doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, the dentist is the one that I was like, wow, now he's sitting on a pot of gold.
Still has to pay it back.
Yeah.
I had a question for Noah. Can I ask that?
Please.
Oh, okay. No, I was wondering, some people are asking me about the traditional loan, you know, and getting it done before September 27th. With everything that's going on with PPP, you know, is it possible? I mean, what's the time frame on traditional SBA loans? I mean, it depends on the lender, but how it has to go through the SBA.
Yeah, ultimately it does depend on the lender. It's kind of, you know, so the 7A loan program is, you know, we're still taking that, but yeah, that program isn't closed, you know, by SBA, or, you know, that's still an active program. And we have the debt relief provisions as well that apply to all the 7A and 504 loan programs, that in which case SBA is paying the first 6 months of principal and interest payments on those loans. I know many of the lenders pretty much shifted 100% of their capacity towards PPP. So there's a number of different items. One is, you know, attention and capacity that has been shifted away from those programs, making it harder to maybe get a traditional 7A or 504 loan issued right now. That being said, I've worked directly with some lenders already that you know, have just closed on 504 loans because they're a really good deal right now. They have incredibly good rates, and those programs are still open. There's definitely delays and difficulties, more difficulties than normal in terms of getting those loans, you know, put through lenders, or if they don't have a delegated authority to make those loans. You know, I imagine that's another delay as well.
So I think the wording is, though, it has to be approved by September 27th to apply for debt relief. Could they change that to it has to be in the pipeline or be submitted?
That one, yeah, I know what you're asking, and I might have even seen. Let's see here. An update as of this morning or yesterday. I regards to that. That might actually be something in the HEROES Act that I'd seen some commentary on about what the exact date is for still being able to qualify for the debt relief.
Okay, no, that's fine. If you don't have it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to call on Susan Lamping because I know they've been doing a lot of PPP loans, but also Susan's, aren't you the largest 504 or something? I can't, community advantage lender, maybe not 504, but are you doing any, is Susan still on with us by phone?
Yeah, I am. Sorry.
That's okay.
I am on. Can you repeat the question?
So I know you're doing, you're doing it, your attention is shifted to PPP. Are you also doing regular loans that you normally do, the SBA loans?
Yeah, so honestly, we just opened up our regular loan review as of yesterday. And right now we're really reassessing what our credit guidelines are going to look like in this environment. And so that'll probably be rolled out in another week or so. So are we doing them? No. Are we looking at deals? Yes. And kind of putting them in the queue to see, if they meet our guidelines. But I mean, as everyone knows, I mean, these are times that we've never seen, even us old timers that have been in the industry for 20 or 30 years. I mean, we've just never seen anything like this. So I feel like the art of lending is going to become even more important than it usually is, versus the science of lending. And every deal has to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. And we really need to understand, how is this business doing? What's their plan? Are they able to stay open? How will this affect their, ability to generate sales and be profitable, and, probably get projections on borrowers that we wouldn't have otherwise gotten projections on. So we're kind of working through all those details to figure out exactly where do we land with what is our comfort level with regular lending.
Yeah. So Bill, there's another nuanced answer for you. We have one more question on EIDL in the chat, and then I want to take some time, and unless anybody has very burning questions on this, I'd like to move on to state policy, because we had an exciting budget come out. And the EIDL spending, can it be used for unpaid bills? I think so, right? Anybody want to answer that? Past unpaid bills? Anybody can answer that. I'm guessing. I mean, EIDL is a disaster loan.
That's a broad. I mean, there's a broader usage for it. I mean, you can't use it to refinance debts, but you can use it towards accounts payables.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, are there any more burning questions on federal policy, or can we move on to state policy? Okay, hearing no burning questions, I am going to turn it over to Mark Herbert, my Friday partner in crime. Mark's from Small Business Majority, and he's also sits on the Cameo board, and he's going to talk about the what's going on at the state level. Mark?
Yeah, I do like being Friday partners in crime with you, Heidi. It's kind of fun during these crazy times. Afternoon, everybody. Yeah, crazy budget came out yesterday. Well, not that crazy. We were expecting it pretty bad. Have some high-level information just to sort of walk through. I don't have all the details yet. Some folks on this call may actually have much more intel than I, so look forward to the conversation. But just for the general structure, as many may know, the state is looking at a massive budget deficit. And so governor recommended around $54 billion in cuts, close that through a number of different ways. There's some state worker furloughs, about 2 days a month. So I think it works out to about 10%. Deep cuts sort of across the board in a host of different public agencies, including education. And then also delayed some tax breaks and tax credits for larger businesses. And so specifically how that, the sort of two main sort of tax components there are: one, if you make more than $1 million in income, so not revenue, but $1 million in income, then you are considered a medium-sized business and you will be prevented from doing a net operating loss carryover. So if you make less than $1 million in income, then you can still do net operating loss carryover. So that's sort of the goal, was try to allow the state to maintain some revenues. And then the second thing was there are a bunch of state tax credits for different industries, whether it's California Competes or the music, the entertainment industry has a number of different tax breaks. So there are a bunch of tax breaks out there. And what they decided to do is cap those tax breaks at 5 million. So you can't get anything above 5 million from a state tax credit or tax cut. So again, those probably don't really impact most of those very micro businesses that we work with, but those are sort of two revenue pieces that were related to what the state was doing. In terms of the specific small business impact, to Heidi's point about an exciting budget, it is pretty amazing and frankly something we should be really excited about and appreciative of. At least we are at Small Business Majority, is that even in a time where you're seeing massive cuts, there were no massive small business cuts, and in fact they actually put money into small business support. So one is fully funding SBDCs, so those are not getting cut. Those will be that funding will be maintained through the coming years, which was one of our concerns and one of our priorities, along with Cameo and a number of others, to make sure that those dollars stayed with SBDCs to make sure they can do the amazing work that they do. And then two, as many folks know, the governor added $50 million to the iBank through the Small Business Finance Center for a loan guarantee fund that has been in the process of rolling out. A handful of lenders are already enrolled. And in this budget, he is allocating an additional $50 million. So just over the past few months, it means that California is investing $100 million into this small business loan guarantee program to leverage dollars for small businesses around the state. So really encouraged and excited about that. A lot of questions about how that money is going to be allocated. Is it going to, which program is it going to go to? How is it actually going to get out the door? I think there are definitely opportunities for advocacy as it relates to thinking about how those programs are structured and what we should be recommending. But it's a really great statement from the administration that there's a challenge here, and the goal is to try to invest in, not cut small business support. The other really big thing, the new businesses. So if you start up a new business, you are exempt from the minimum franchise tax for this year. So it's that $800, that you pay at the end of the year. I think this is actually a really good opportunity. I know that Cameo had a lot of recommendations on how to actually structure the minimum franchise tax cut so it benefited the really small businesses. I think this, because I think it's about $100 million that's in the budget here for this minimum franchise tax, I think it actually presents an opportunity to think about how best that $100 million could be allocated to support small business programs. Maybe it's to do the minimum franchise tax for new businesses. Maybe it's to think about a structured or tiered approach that Cameo has recommended. Maybe there are other uses to think about how those dollars should be spent to support small business. So we just sort of flag that maybe that's an opportunity to think about. And then the last piece that was really encouraging, something that Cameo and Small Business Majority have been working on and supporting. There was a proposal to expand the Department of Business Oversight and really change it into this Department of Financial Innovation, I think is DFPI. And the goal with this effort is to allow the department to have much broader sort of research and sort of market research framework, so that they have broader sort of authority in the lending space with all the non-traditional lenders that are out there. Right, we know they're not all created equal. We know that payday lending for small business is happening, and we know that there are a lot of challenges out there when it comes to the really small businesses in this space. So what this would do would empower the DBO to have much broader authority, or not broader, would have more. It would reach further, so they could actually investigate, do market research, look into different areas, and really get a better sense of what that marketplace is. And then allow us to sort of make recommendations around sort of what does that mean to make sure that small business owners are actually getting quality products. And the big piece of advocacy there that could be helpful is in the initial proposal, the small business lending marketplace was included as part of the DBO authority. It's unclear if the small business marketplace is included in this May revise. We think it is, but we're engaging and Heidi and I, and along with the Responsible Business Lending Coalition, have been communicating with lawmakers to encourage them to make sure that this expansion of authority allows them to be able to explore the small business marketplace. And I don't need to tell you that there are lenders out there that are charging 100% plus APR, and the business owners don't even know it. And so we want to make sure that we can get our arms around this market so that we have a responsible, functioning, and a quality marketplace for small businesses. So that's the state update. Happy to take questions. If I can answer them, I will. If not, would welcome any other insight from folks on the call who've probably done more reading than I have at this point.
Yeah, no, I just want to, and I could post I'll post a link to the budget summary in a second. I think it was a clear statement by the governor that they definitely see that small businesses are super important. That that they're getting crushed, and B, like the recognition that they're getting crushed, and B, the recognition of the importance and the important work that everybody here is doing, that we're going to need these small businesses on the other side. When I heard that everything wasn't touched, I was like, I was actually in a little bit of a obviously a happy shock, but I was just like, I was kind of amazed. A lot of the pieces Mark.
Question for Mark. One of the things, that technical assistance expansion program, you referenced it as a small business development center piece, but of course it includes more than just SBDCs. Actually, the question I have, and I think Carmen actually brought it up too, and that is that on the federal side, there's been a huge increase in money that has gone to women's business centers and SBDCs as part of the CARES Act. It would be a logical thing to put it in the mix to say on the state side, if they are in fact going to be able to keep that TAPE money, that technical assistance expansion program money, if they're able to keep that money in, to allow it to be expanded to other nonprofit TA providers other than the ones who are federally funded. And the reasoning for it is the ones who are federally funded are getting money poured on them by the federal side, and the ones who are not getting federal money, the other nonprofits, TA that are Cameo members, for example, are being cut out of both. So they're not getting the state money, and they're not getting the benefit of having to increase CARES money that is going to SBDCs and women's business centers.
Yeah, that's something that we're talking about, that Cameo's been talking. The board is also talking about having a conversation around that. Mark, do you, I don't know if you have any insight into that, or Carolina, if you've heard anything either, but
well,
I think it would have to be, that wasn't statute, because they did define the recipients of the TAPE money in statute. So it would definitely have to be in the trailer bill language. It's not just something that GoBiz can do, I think. So we'd have to.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand, Heidi, and believe me, it's astonishing. I agree. It's astonishing that they were able to keep that intact. So I'm not complaining about the fact that the state is keeping that money there. That's a spectacular effort to try to keep small business kept in a priority. But it is the case that some of the TA providers that are getting money from the state are also getting a significant increase from the feds. And the ones who are not getting it are kind of left out in the cold.
Sure. No, I understand. It's just that is something that we've been talking about for sure. Mark, do you have any more?
I'll just say, I think it's a really important conversation that Cameo should have. I think if Cameo wants to, Cameo wants to say that's our position and we would like to request that it be opened up, it would definitely require a push. Not to say it couldn't happen. I think it would be uphill in some ways. I think you'd have some folks come out saying, no, we don't want that. As well as, frankly, there are a lot of moving pieces that are happening right now, obviously behind the scenes with, folks at GoBiz in terms of their priorities. And, I think the case could be made that this should be one of those, but it would have to be a really sustained and consistent effort. So don't think it's a bad idea. Carmen's chatting in the chat box. Carmen, good to hear your voice. Glad you're engaging here and weighing in. Right, so there's definitely a conversation that should happen around what's Cameo's position, and if that's the position, then Cameo needs to push hard for it.
And I would just add that it's definitely something that we've been bringing up at the state level, and we still keep advocating for it. So it is not fully like it should be expanded. Obviously, the main concern for the current grantees is that it dilutes the money, right? So what we are really hoping to do is maybe expand the pool so we can include more. So that is something that we're definitely interested in continue advocating for. But right now it is really hard, as Heidi was saying, to really include it in this specific pool of money as it is in the statute specifically for this. So yes, thank you for bringing it up. We definitely keep that in mind, and we will be continue to bring this into the table.
Carmen's asking what the mechanism is, just so everybody knows. It would have to be language or an amendment in the trailer bill to increase the pool of eligible organizations, because that was a bill that was passed, so that's in code, and they defined who was eligible for the money in code. So that needs to be changed. The definition needs to be changed.
And maybe a good next step for Cameo is to have sort of a policy recommendation conversation, put together, these are the priorities, and that should be part of that conversation. Because, we have a short window here between May 15th and June 15th where they're going to be debating this thing. We already have hearings that are going to be rolling next week in the Assembly and the Senate, budget committee hearings. And this thing's going to move quickly just because no one wants to be in that building longer than they have to. And also they got to get something done by the 15th. And the last thing I'll say is, and the legislature is feeling a little hurt that they have not been able to take the leadership position that they'd like to take in the midst of the pandemic, and feel that they've ceded some of that authority to the governor, and they definitely want to put their stamp on this. So, there's an interesting political dynamic in the building, both with the speed as well as members really wanting to get credit for fixing problems. And not just letting the governor get the credit for the response. So, yeah, I think it's something Cameo could look at, and we could put together a list and then start pushing.
Yeah, the other thing I want to add, another thing that we've been talking about at Cameo, and it seems that it has some traction in the budget, is Caroline, if you can say what you told me this morning about the 5% and the efficiency. You're going to say it much better than me since you heard it. I only heard it once. I need to hear things a few times before it sinks in.
No, it was actually a conversation about how obviously since the revenue of the state is actually decreased, expenses need to be also decreased. So part of what Governor Newsom mentioned yesterday was that there is going to be hopefully a 10% decrease in state employees' salaries, but there is also, and they're hoping to do a 5% decrease by the departments having more efficiencies and being able to streamline process more. So this obviously includes a lot of telework and reducing expenses, but it opens up an interesting point of how we can be how can they be more efficient to lower expenses.
And that's something that the Cameo board's been talking about and having some conversations about, is being the convener of a roundtable, asking the governor really to convene it, but helping them to do so, and with his leadership. And I think this is our opening to do that, where you actually have the agencies and the legislative leadership at the table with governor leadership. It doesn't have to be the governor, but leadership at the table, listening to all the practitioners of all the different myriads of programs that the state hosts and all the different agencies, and to try and find out where you know, if there's going to be a 10% cut, you're going to have to cut anyways. Where can programs, where does it make the most sense for the cuts to come from, so that the programs don't suffer themselves, right? So that's one of the things that Cameo has been working on, sort of behind the scenes, to help the governor and the agencies make cuts that'll be the less painful and less impactful, let's allow the dollars to be most impactful and most efficiently used in where they need to be. So that's something that we're talking about. Any more questions on the budget? Any more questions about the budget? Any other issues that people want to bring up state? I want to welcome, I think if she's still on, Judy Hawkins joined us a few minutes ago, who used to be on the Cameo board and had a question about EDD. Judy, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
There you are, yes. Do you want to ask your EDD question?
Yes, I was just curious if any information that any agencies or organizations have about success with gig workers and solo entrepreneurs applying for the disaster aid through EDD. So basically the new unemployment program that is allowing people to qualify. So I have questions, I'm getting questions, you know, from businesses and consultants about you know, what's involved in applying, how are they doing the qualifications, and also you know, just some of the parameters of success. Are people receiving benefits?
Yeah, it's a great, this is Mark with Smallest Majority. It's a great question, Judy. They're just so, EDD is so impacted right now. The volume of applications they're trying to process is really intense, and so they are very behind. Is sort of the bottom line, and they've literally pulled every single person out of the field. Like every education person that was doing webinars and events, they're all processing. Like every single person's been pulled in. They've hired temp employees. So that's sort of the starting point, is that the applications are taking a very long time. In terms of actually filing, what's nice about the self-employed unemployment is they can do that online through the portal. So if you go to the EDD website, they actually have some really great information there about how to file, what that means. The biggest question we get is sort of those folks who do both, right? Like I got some W-2 income, I have some 1099, like I have some, like how do I figure out? So the rule of thumb is really you have to exhaust your W-2 unemployment eligibility. And once that's exhausted, so either you didn't work enough or you've already used it all. Once that's exhausted, then you would apply for the individual self-employed unemployment insurance. The important part though is the federal support that you mentioned, that extra $600 a week, that's stacked on whether you do it as a self-employed individual or whether you do that as a W-2 employee. You're going to get that extra $600. I am not certain any of that $600 money has gone out yet, I want to say. I think they're still trying to get it out the door. Has it gone out, Heidi? Have you heard of people who've gotten that extra 600?
Oh yeah, my husband.
Okay, good. Don't listen to me.
No, I've heard a bunch of people who have gotten the 600. It's 600. He applied. I mean, he got laid off immediately, and as not as unemployed as an employee. The thing is, the self-employed were, I don't know, a month behind or something like that. The other I can't remember when the date that they were started to able to apply for the unemployment. So the claims just stacked up, and they're probably just way behind. And my understanding is that it's all retro, so they'll get back out.
Yeah, that's the good news. As long as you get your application in, you're going to get paid.
So how are there, I'm just curious about the process as well. Like, how are they determining, without having like W-2 roll, which they use in the, if you have employment income. So how are they determining eligibility.
I'll look it up and I'll send it around. I mean, I'm not quite sure, to be frank. I know it's all in the application. I haven't walked through it yet, but I'll look it up and I'll send it around here in a sec.
Thanks.
We have 4 minutes left. Does anybody have any other questions or comments or state about what they see their small businesses need, anything they want to share? Peggy wrote in chat, for self-employed, it was not retro. Benefits started the week filing in late April. Okay, thank you for that qualification. Vic wants to know when Main Street is launching what? I'm not sure what.
I was talking about the Main Street lending program.
Oh, okay, because we have Main Street. Main Street launches one of Cameo members. The Federal Reserve Main Street lending program. We're still waiting for that to be launched. I don't know. Noah, do you have any update? Elizabeth, do you have any update?
No, I mean, what's been released so far is kind of the terms of the program and what the loans will look like, but the start date, to my knowledge, has not been released yet. I can put the FAQ document though in the chat with some of those details.
Sure. Other questions, comments? We hold these because like if you have questions that we can't answer, we want to make sure we can send Liz and Mark and myself, go find the answers. But
well, Heidi, I just want to say thank you to everyone on the call for continually sending things that are issues or problems or comments. I mean, we really do pass those along to the appropriate people. And the new legislation is kind of directly a result of that. So please keep doing that. Please keep sending Heidi and Carolina just things as they arise.
Yeah. Well, with that, everybody have a fabulous weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hope you get outdoors, get some sunshine. Oh, Mark, you want to say something?
Yeah, I didn't get to it. Judy, I just posted it in the chat. So that's the self-employed eligibility criteria for EDD. I just dropped it in the chat. I was just scanning through it, didn't have a chance to digest it as we're ending this call here, but that would be the best place to look to identify, what do you need? How does it work? And then there are a bunch of FAQs and the forms are there as well.
Fabulous. Thank you, Mark. And we'll make sure there's a whole bunch of links we posted in the Zoom chat. We'll make sure that you guys get an email with that, with all that there. I think we'll send you the audio and the slides in case you want to pass them on to your colleagues. I don't think it's a lot quicker to do that than send the video recording. Have a fabulous weekend. Keep on doing all the great work that you're doing. If there's a topic that you want to know more about that we're not covering, please do let us know. And happy Friday, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see some of you. Yes, all of you. Great to see all of you, but some of you we haven't in a long time.